in my mind exactly what Ezekiel saw and what he was trying to describe. Could you make any sense out of what he was describing? I mean, one of the things that he was describing it's really not possible in what we would try to do. He was talking about these wheels. There's it indicates that there might be a wheeled chariot that has come down, and because it's got four wheels, of course, it's got each wheel is beside one of the cherubims, and it looks like it might be the chariot of God that came down. Now, the impression, the general impression of what's going on here is there's this constant activity, because if you followed along there with how Ezekiel was describing things, there was constant moving. Everything was either going up or down, or it was going in some direction, one of the four different directions. There was constant moving going on here by these living creatures. But also, if he was describing the throne of God, a chariot throne, if you will, then that chariot was also moving. The throne of God was also moving. Now, if you go over to the book of Revelation, Revelation chapter 4, you can see a resemblance from the vision that John had in Revelation chapter 4 and this vision that Ezekiel's got, because Ezekiel saw this throne-like chariot, which was kind of a supernatural chariot, and it was always in motion. It seems to indicate that there's this irresistible progress going on all the time. Well, what would you think of? What could be in total motion, complete progress all the time and never stop? Can you do that? I used to think I could, but I realized I had to stop sometime or another. You can go 24, 28 hours, and then you're going to fall over dead if you don't stop. But it's kind of reflecting the idea that this constant motion, this irresistible progress that was always being made, was God. He is seeing God in total motion. He's never going to be stopped. God is never going to be deterred from his job or for the progress that he wants to make, the things that he's going to do upon the earth, which God is working upon the earth. He works through us, but he works upon the earth, and his progress is not going to be stopped. Now, I found it interesting that in the ancient days, in the old days of the Jews and in the Old Testament days, in the Hebrew, they found something in this passage of Scripture that kind of identified a divine throne. So that's the reason why we think that he is seeing actually God's throne, a chariot throne that's come down. So not only did the judgment of God come in the whirlwind and the fire, but then God comes too. So it's a picture of God always working. He's moving across the whole world. And he's identifying some different colors. One of them is beryl, the color beryl. What color is that? Anybody know? Ma'am? It's well, in this particular word, in modern, the modern definition is that's a part of it. But in what they were describing, it comes in different colors, but the most prominent, the most precious, and the most outstanding was actually emerald. And it was the most precious stone that they had back then. And so it seems to indicate that these wheels, as they were turning and as they were working, were always giving off a green emerald color. And can you picture a wheel in a wheel? What would that look like? And when he describes this wheel in a wheel, there's evidently two wheels, and they're actually at right angles of each other. So there's one wheel this way, and there's one wheel this way. Ma'am? Yeah? But you wouldn't think that would be able to move. You got a wheel going this way and a wheel going this way, and they're always turning. It's a unique engineering feat. And the way he describes what these things do, they're at right angles, which is, it's an impossibility if you're in our world. But if you've got a wheel this way and you got a wheel this way, a wheel in a wheel, it kind of gives us the sense that these wheels can move in any direction without having to turn. Can you imagine being able to drive a car and never have to turn it, but you could go every direction you wanted to? That'd save a lot of time, wouldn't it? That's kind of about what they lose no time at all trying to turn because they don't have to turn. It just automatically goes whichever way you want it to go. And, we've got the cherubim there, and we've got 4 faces on each cherubim. So we've had a face that would direct them to go to any direction that they wanted to go. The wheels could go any direction they wanted to go. Now that sounds weird to me. What is Ezekiel seeing? And to be honest with you, I don't know that there's any fine theologian that has that all figured out exactly, because you can read about 10 or 15 different theologians' ideas about it and get 25 different answers. He is seeing something that he has no vocabulary to describe. And so he's doing the best that he can. But what he has actually envisioned is workings of God upon the earth. Now, he says something else here about the rims of these wheels. They were so high, they were awesome. The rims themselves were full of eyes. What kind of symbolism can that be? Sees everything, you'd think, doesn't it? Well, again, it's not easy to figure out what Ezekiel saw or what he's trying to describe here. But if you go back again to the book of Revelation, John had a vision, and he had a vision of the cherubims themselves being full of eyes. So it seems that this, if it's a chariot, if it's a chariot throne, whatever it is that he sees, it is something that has great knowledge and great intelligence. It sees everything. So if it sees everything, it knows everything. And these eyes can see any way that this chariot wants to move. So he's got to be describing God, because God knows everything. He knows every direction. He knows everything that's going on. So I think what these wheels are actually symbolizing is the omnipresence of God, as well as the omniscience of God. He's all the places at all times, and he knows all things at all times. So that seems to be the indication that he is envisioning, or he's got this vision of God at work. And when these living creatures went, the wheels went with them, and as all four of these cherubim moved, so did all four of the wheels move. They were connected in some way. They're so connected, so closely connected, that Ezekiel described them as the spirit of the creatures was in the wheels. They were so connected that they would go the direction that evidently God wanted them to go immediately. But he's describing something that's continuing to work, continuing to progress. Then he makes a statement indicating that a time is going to pass, approximately 13 months, as we'll see later, and the cherubim and this heavenly chariot is going to, it leaves, and then it's going to come back again, and it's actually going to remove the glory of God from the temple. Going to remove the glory of God from the tabernacle, or from the city of Jerusalem. That is a vision of what actually took place, because God did bring judgment both on the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom with two different enemies. The Assyrians captured the northern kingdom and took them captive and exiled them. And then the Babylonians took Judah, which is the southern kingdom, and exiled them. And that's where Jerusalem was, in the southern kingdom. And they were exiled there. So God's glory, and then they tore down the temple, stole everything out of the temple. So God's glory was removed from the temple. But God graciously gave Ezekiel a vision of the return of God's glory to the temple, the return of the cherubims, the throne and everything, the heavenly chariot. That's over in Ezekiel 43 when we get to that and we see what happens there. So this is a strange vision that Ezekiel has. And, I try to envision, here is this chariot, and it's got these strange wheels. It's almost like a round wheel on all four corners that's like a globe. So it moves in any direction, in every direction it wants to. But it's really a symbol of what God is doing and what he can do and how powerful and sovereign he is. So he's trying to describe the sovereignty of God, the awesomeness of God, using the only language that he's got. But he continues in verse 22, and I'll tell you now, we're not going to finish with this one tonight. The likeness of the firmament above the heads of the living creatures was like the color of an awesome crystal, stretched out over their heads, and under the firmament were their wings spread out straight, one toward another. Each one had two which covered one side, and each one had two which covered the other side of the body. When they went, I heard the noise of their wings like the noise of many waters, like the voice of the Almighty, a tumult like the noise of an army. And when they stood still, they let down their wings. A voice came from above the firmament that was over their heads. Whenever they stood, they let down their wings. Now, this is a continuation of the vision, but it's in a different location. He's looking at the firmament. Where's the firmament? That's overhead, isn't it? The firmament, isn't that what we see up there? Above the wings of the living creature is the firmament. Even above the firmament, uh, this likeness of the firmament is above the heads of the living creatures, but it's not ahead or it's not above God. And he describes something like the color of crystal. He describes the firmament as a color of crystal. There would seem to be something spectacular about the sky that was above the cherubim. Now, I think used to be able to go outside, you could see stars when you looked up. But if you get out of this town and get out in the hill country someplace or get up on a mountaintop, you can see how beautiful the heavens really are. And all of the stars and the planets and everything that you see on a good clear night, it is awesome. But Ezekiel is seeing something besides the sky, and he's describing, well, what the Hebrew, the word it's Raquia is the Hebrew word, and it's translated into the word firmament. But the Hebrew word is actually a word that means something made firm by beating on it or by stamping it. Something like a hammered piece of metal work. You ever done any metal shop work, any body work on cars built before 1980? You know, they were made of metal. These things today are made of plastic. But you can beat on metal and you can stamp on that metal and hammer out a beautiful piece of metal work, and it'll actually shine. But when you think about the firmament, it refers to when you stand out and you look at the heavens, and if you've got plenty of clearance where there's no trees or anything like that that blocks your vision, it looks like the heavens, the firmament up there, looks like a big round bowl, doesn't it? When you're looking at it straight up and you can see it, looks like it's curving over the horizon. It's a beautiful looking scene. Ma'am? Yeah. And it's I think it has special meaning because that kind of vision is something that's referenced in several other different scriptures. You can go back to Genesis chapter 1, or you can look in Psalms, Psalms 19. You can look in Psalms 150, also in the book of Daniel, Daniel chapter 12. But here in Ezekiel, the reference is not like that bowl-shaped thing. It's more of a piece of flat, firm surface or platform that he sees. If you go back again to the book of Revelation, you see the same reference, the same phrase that's used, but it's used to describe a sea of glass. In this sea of glass in the book of Revelation is also crystal, and it's out before the throne of God. So you have this sea of glass, this platform, this firmament before the throne of God. And he makes this statement. He said, I heard the noise of their wings, talking about the cherubim, like the noise of many waters, like the voice of the Almighty. He seems to be describing this loud noise that's like a very loud waterfall, a big, large waterfall. Now, I've never been to Niagara Falls, but I understand it gets pretty noisy when you get real close to it. But I have been to some other waterfalls, like out in Oregon, in Washington State. They have some beautiful waterfalls, and they make a lot of noise because they're dropping about 500 feet. And that's a lot of noise. And that's what he's trying to describe, seems to be the voice of God that you can hear above everything else, no matter what's going on. And John uses the very same phrase to describe the voice of Jesus, the ascended Jesus. He's ascended into heaven, and he speaks, and that's in Revelation chapter 1. Revelation 1. And that voice that here, and it's described as Jesus' voice, is also the voice of a great multitude. But Ezekiel says that this voice came from above the firmament. So it wasn't the cherubim that was making this noise. It wasn't any other angels making this noise. Coming from above the firmament, he is describing the voice of God who is above the firmament. Not only was this voice loud, it was a voice that everybody heard and everybody understood. It was a voice that even the creatures responded to when it came out of the firmament. Then he says in verses 26 through 28, and above the firmament over their heads was the likeness of a throne, in appearance like a sapphire stone. On the likeness of the throne was a likeness of the appearance of a man high above it. Also from the appearance of his waist and upward, I saw, as it were, the color of amber, with the appearance of fire all around within it. And from the appearance of his waist and downward, I saw, as it were, the appearance of fire with brightness all around. Like the appearance of a rainbow in a cloud on a rainy day, so was the appearance of the brightness all around it. This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of God. There was this throne, or a likeness of a throne, above the firmament. And we've already seen this throne come to the earth and move around the earth, but now he's describing it as above the firmament. Since these wheels were always working and seemed to be on the earth with the living creatures, and this voice came from above the throne, or came from the firmament above, it seems that the actual presence of God was above the cherubim. The wheels were working and moving with the cherubim, so the God was actually above them. I found it interesting, in different books of the Bible, we see different descriptions of God here. And in the book of Isaiah, describes the principles of the throne of God. When you get to Jeremiah describes the practice of the throne, what's going on the throne. But here in Ezekiel, we actually have the vision of the person who is on the throne. And the vision that he gives us is just amazing. He sees something in the appearance like a sapphire stone. Now, Moses had a vision of something similar to this in parts of the heaven, and he described it as blue in color, very brilliant in color, like a sapphire stone. Now, this throne, it's a majestic throne, and the Hebrews had a word they said that this, and to describe Ezekiel's, what he's trying to describe anyway, it was made of lepsis lazuli, which is supposedly one of the most precious stones of the ancient days. Now, I don't know that anybody's ever seen one in the last few hundred years or 1,000 years, but it is the most precious of those days. And he says that that is present. Also, the sapphire, which is, it's kind of it can come in many different shades of blue, which I didn't know about. But he describes this one that's on the throne. And the way he puts it is, on the likeness of the throne was a likeness with the appearance of a man high above it. He repeats this phrase, the likeness of, several times. Could there be a reason for it? Would you hazard to guess why he kept saying the likeness of the throne, the likeness of the appearance of a man, the likeness of something that he was looking at? He didn't have the full vocabulary to be able to describe heavenly things. It's part of it. But it's also, I believe, an assurance that what Ezekiel saw was not a throne, and it was not God, it was not a man, he saw a likeness of. You ever catch a glimpse of something or someone or something and say, well, they look just like so-and-so, or that looked like a something or other? This is what Ezekiel's trying to describe, but he's doing it in a way to be sure that when he described what he saw, he was describing a representation and not the real thing. So he's thinking he's seeing God's throne. He's thinking he's seeing God, but he knows he's not seeing God. He's seeing something like God. But here's the kicker of it all. He will deny that he actually saw the throne of God, that he actually saw God himself. He just simply saw the likeness of God and the likeness of a throne. And this likeness, he says, was the appearance of a man. Now let that sink in. It had the appearance of a man. Now, if you go back in the Scripture, in the Old Testament, go back as far as Moses anyway, from the point of Moses on in the Old Testament, the Israelites believed that you could not visibly express God because you could not visibly see God. So what is Ezekiel describing? Is there a possibility here of a theophany? I mean, there's no form that Ezekiel could identify except the human form, because that's the only form that we have to go by, and it's the human form for a specific reason. He didn't see a form of a dog or a giraffe or a bull or a cow. The form that was the likeness of a man. Now, if God could be portrayed as a concrete, solid form of some kind, what do you think would be the form that he would show? Can I suggest that if you could see the likeness of God, you would see the likeness of a man? Now, where did that idea come from? He created man. Well, so what? He created dogs too. He created us in his image. Not only that, he said that man was the crowning glory of all his creation. And another thing, when he fully revealed himself to us, what did he look like? His name was Jesus Christ. So wouldn't it just make sense that Ezekiel saw the likeness of a man that could have been God? Because didn't he come in the likeness of a man? He came as a man. And man is the crowning glory of his creation. So had he come as a talking bull, what would we have thought about him then? Hey, we got an alien. This, and the description that Ezekiel was giving us here is, he did not see a face. He didn't see a body that he could actually draw or for everybody, but he saw this fiery brightness in the form or in the shape of a human. And he knew it was living. He knew it was personal, but how did he describe it? The way he's describing it is with all kinds of color and all kinds of brightness and glory. So he was not looking at a man, but he did not see God either. He saw this likeness of a man, something like a man. Wasn't like anything else that he had ever seen. He saw something of the glory of Yahweh that absolutely defies description. He uses a bunch of colors here. He has the color amber. He has the color of beryl, which is emerald green. He has the color of sapphires, which is blue. And now he's describing something of golden brown or amber. And from the appearance of his waist down, he saw this appearance of fire and brightness all around him. And there was red and yellow and coming down from the representation of God. I mean, he is with all of this symbol or symbolism, he's pointing to God high and lifted up and all of the heavens, far removed from the world. And yet, God, being so removed from the world and so different, is still giving direction and orders to his creation from his heavenly throne. He is still directing everything that goes on in his universe from his heavenly throne. He's pictured as colorful, very bright, has this bright glow and radiance about him, has this kind of this rainbow of a cloud, just like what John saw over in the book of Revelation. He saw the throne of God surrounded by a rainbow. This whole setting that he's describing it's all about the sovereignty and the power and the authority and the glory of God. But he just don't know how to completely describe it so we can understand. And I'm not sure that he even could understand. Uh, he's trying to get us to remember, or I guess maybe he's trying to remind us that God's promise is never to destroy the world, and he's given us a promise that his sovereignty is not something that's capricious. It's not something that's against his promises. I mean, God's authority and God's throne says, I can do whatever I want to do because I rule, I created it all. But his promises say, I will fulfill my word to you because I can't do otherwise. He makes a promise, he can't change it, he can't go back on it, he can't break it, he can't violate it. It's against his nature, it's against his character. So he's got this appearance of the likeness of the glory of God all over. And Ezekiel is building up to the declaration that he's trying to make of this radiant being that he sees. And this was, in fact, Yahweh, although he can't identify or he can't describe Yahweh in human form, but this certainly is the God of Israel himself in all of his glory and all of his splendor. All of the Shekinah of God is visible here. It's not a man I see. Can't be God I see. God's Spirit, is he not? But this is the best I can do to describe what I'm seeing. I'm seeing the glory, the Shekinah of God. I know a number of scholars that I've read and believe that what he was seeing was actually a pre-incarnation of Jesus. I had an old preacher friend of mine. He's gone on to be with the Lord. But he made a statement one night in a Bible study. And he said this. He said, I believe the only God we will ever see in heaven will be Jesus. Think that's a possibility? What are you going to see? What's God look like? Can't see a spirit. Doesn't the scripture say Father, Son, and Holy Spirit are one? Well, do you understand what happened to Christ when he came? He was spirit. He came to earth in bodily form. He was flesh and blood. And when he died on the cross, he died in flesh and blood. When he rose from the grave, he was still in bodily form. People could see him. They could touch him. They ate. He ate. And then he ascended into heaven. What did the angel say to the disciples as they watched Jesus leave? In like manner, this same Jesus will return. Is that same Jesus in reference to his form? I fully believe it is. How else would you recognize him when he came again? I'm of the opinion, and you can disagree, that's okay. But Jesus gave up all of glory, became a human being. He was fully human being and fully God. How that happens, I don't know. I can't explain it. I just believe that's what God said, and that's what I believe. He was fully human, he's fully God. And I believe that he gave up that spirit form, became that creature that they saw when he rose from the dead. And he's going to remain that way. Now I've got you thoroughly confused, and you're wondering what left field did he come out of? But I believe there's so many mysteries about God we don't know that it's just going to blow our mind when we get to heaven. Say, wow, I never imagined this. Well, yes, ma'am. That's what God said, and I believe that's exactly what we're going to see when we see God. We're going to see Jesus Christ, the fullness of the Godhead. It's going to be thrilling. Okay. We've got a lot more we could get into, but we'll have to wait till next week. Okay? Any questions? Comments, suggestions, ideas? It's just going to be a glorious time. Oh, I've gone way over time. Sorry about that, Charlie. Let's have a word of prayer and we'll go. Kelly, would you dismiss us in prayer, please?